You're listening to Bosley Real Estate Podcast, Episode 6, Make Being Learning Based the Foundation of Your Action Plan, which is Step 4 of the 6 Personal Perspectives.
I remember Gary Keller saying this in the mastermind. He said, choose your profit wisely. You know, you want to get role models in your life that know how to handle their finances, know how to handle their money, know how to have a good relationship with their spouse and their children, and have their children be happy. That's huge. And then, you know, you also want to make sure that you can take care of yourself. And I am not perfect. I'm far from it. Yet I'm still a work in progress.
Welcome to the Bosley Real Estate Podcast, your guide in creating wealth, leaving a legacy, and winning in real estate. Now, here is your host, Rick Bosley.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Rick Bosley. I am your host today, and we are continuing on with our journey through the 6 personal perspectives. This is step 4. I trust you've already listened to steps 1 through 3. If you haven't, and this is the first episode you're listening to, you might want to do yourself a favor and go back and start with the committing to self-mastery. That's going to take you through the journey. We have 6 steps that we're going through. The second one was committing to the 80-20 principle. Moving from E to P, and today is Make Being Learning Based the foundation of your action plan. You see, in anything we do in life, we're going to get there through learning. If we're learning to walk, I've got a son right now, he's 15 months old. Yes, he's a late bloomer, and he is standing and he is stepping. He is not quite walking, and he is learning. And every time he falls, sometimes he laughs, sometimes he cries. Frankly, he's getting closer to walking. Where is that showing up in your career? Where are you now standing that just 2 and 3 months ago you weren't? Where are you taking your first step that wasn't even thought about because you couldn't stand? Are you starting to walk, and are you running? I think oftentimes we look at others, we judge ourselves compared to what others are doing, and we compare our insides to their outsides. We don't appreciate the journey that it took to get there. So wherever you're at in your career or your goals or your investment strategies, you got to figure out, what is that first step? Who can I learn from? What class can I attend? What book can I read? What podcast, like this one, can you listen to? And then when you do it, I encourage you to take action afterward. So I'm excited about the guest today. We're going to get her a little bit. Before we do, let's do some quick housekeeping issues. Thank you guys for jumping on here. This is something I really enjoy doing. I love teaching. My name is Rick Bosley. I'm a realtor from Central Florida, Greater Orlando area. I can service any and all housing needs in the real estate arena that you might have in this area. And what's really neat, especially because I'm doing this at a higher level, I'm getting connected and networked with a lot of people throughout the country. So if anything we can help you with from real estate services or needs, or even just some vendors around your house, please make sure you contact us. If you don't need that, yet you like what you're listening to, whatever medium that you are listening to this, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and like it, subscribe to it, review it, only if you're nice. No, review it, leave some comments, tell us what you think, because it does gain some momentum to share this story. And if it helps you, hopefully it'll help somebody else that falls upon it. All right, let's jump into today's guest. We've got Jessica Starr. She's out of the Connecticut area. She's got a big team. The goal is to close 300 units in the coming years, and she's not too far from that. She's part of Gary Keller's Top 100 Mastermind, and she's been doing real estate for about 15 plus years. The amazing thing that, at least for me, is for the first half of her career, she was either having babies, holding babies, or changing babies' diapers, all while working through an injury in the household that she had with her husband through workers' comp, so single-family household. She talks about a story of when her dad was ill, and she just kept making it work, and she stayed positive, stayed focused, stayed learning-based. So without further ado, here is Jessica Starr with Starr Realty Group out of Connecticut. Okay, so I'm here with Jessica Starr out of Connecticut. And Jess, thanks for jumping on this podcast with us today and talking to us about all of your successes and the failures that came along that way. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So a little bit about you. I know that you and I have connected, and we're getting to know each other more and more every time we see each other. But for the viewers and for the listeners who have never met you or know who you are, can you give us kind of just a quick resume of why you might be valid to listen to for the next 20 or 30 minutes?
Sure. Well, I am a top producing agent here in Connecticut. We've run the #1 team for the last 7 years. Had a little dip last year, and yet I lost 85 pounds. I got more time back with my family, and one of the reasons I had come to Keller to begin with was because I was losing just that. And I'm a mom of 4 with a husband that stays home, and they're all very young kids. And, you know, we did we sell about 175 to 191 was our best year for homes here in Connecticut. So seasoned professionals, we give where we live, and we just love taking care of the client to make them become friends. So that's huge. Well,
I love that. And from the looks of it, you have a fun time doing it along the way.
We do.
So I think what's really important, we're going to learn about you today, and also we're going to dive into the fourth personal perspective, which is learning based. Yet let's really break down a little bit what you just shared with us. So number one team with 191 closed units. Tell me about your organization chart with those 191. Who's in the team?
So the year we did 191, that was a couple years ago. Last year we did 176. So we went down a little bit. That was just shy of 45 million, and last year was 38 million.
Okay.
That year that we did 191, there was only 4 selling agents on the team. So I think that's pretty important. And last year, for a portion of the year, we got up to, I think it was 12 selling agents.
Okay.
So when you look at the numbers, was that really the best? We had a bunch of newer people too, so they were getting their feet wet and started. Yet I think my lesson when you fail and learn is that you can be even more effective with less people if you have the right group of people and the right culture that supports and lifts each other up.
Well, I love that. So you with 4 people, you did 191. With 12, you did 175. Kind of reminds me of the Navy SEALs can be more efficient than just the Navy.
Exactly.
Right? And finding the right people. Mother of 4. How old are your kids?
13, 11, 7, and 5.
13, 11, 7, and 5. How long have you been selling real estate for?
15 years. I've been with KW almost 9.
Okay. So you pretty much started real estate and then had 2 years in, had a newborn, 2 years later, a newborn, 4 years later, a newborn, 2 years later, a newborn. So the majority of your career, you've been pregnant and or having a newborn child or potty trained or diapers.
Yeah. And then add in 2 sick parents, both that passed away, and a traumatic injury for my husband when I switched to Keller Williams 6 months in.
Wow. So a lot of the counterbalance and where and what you've learned from that, because then above and beyond that, your health journey, 85 pounds is amazing. Congratulations. For that. So let's dive in a little bit about your transition, because you started with a company, you're with them for 7 years. I imagine you came over already pretty successful. So when you joined Keller Williams in 2011, was it?
Yep, it was the very end of 2010, so 2011, let's say.
Okay, tell me where you were at in your business that caused you to have a switch, because 7 years with one company, the existing one, I imagine you had some pretty deep roots and systems and foundations. So what about where you were at in your business said it was time for a change?
So what I was finding was I was an individual agent then. I had a very, very part-time assistant that I paid about $200 a transaction with to just help, miscellaneous paperwork and whatnot. And I did, I think it was 45, 50 homes myself. And it sounded great. Yet what I was missing was time with my loved ones. And I, stopped getting invited to events because if I'd come, I wouldn't really be present. I'd always be on my phone. Or
family events you're talking about.
What's that?
You said events. You mean like family events?
Family events, friends events, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So, or I'd be at part of the event for part of the time and have to run off because I didn't know how to manage my time.
Sure.
And one of the main reasons I actually had switched to Keller Williams is really simple, and people will probably laugh about it, but I had my manager at the time actually sit down with me, and before I had even come over, and he showed me how to time block. And so it was a system and tool I never knew about being at Prudential, and they didn't really take the time to pour into their people that way, at least for me. And I was their top agent in the office. And, my weight was starting to get out of control. I was having my 3rd baby, and, it was a little crazy. So, and I wasn't managing my time. I was missing birthday parties or girlfriends, time together. And that just wasn't okay with me because my whole business has been based on referral.
Right.
So that's huge.
So you made a switch. Now give me the track record of kind of the checkpoints. So if you went from in 2011 solo agent who's burnt out and not feeling great about the other parts of life, when did you hire a coach? When did you kind of start learning about the Keller Williams models and systems?
So I think after I had gone to family reunion, I had seen Liz Landry. We had friended each other. Liz watched everything I did. And eventually she actually reached out to me. So I kind of did everything unconventionally. She reached out to me and said, hey, I think you could really benefit from coaching. I see what you're doing on social media. and I'd love to, talk to you and give you some pointers. And so, I had a couple quick conversations with her, coaching sessions, and I knew, this girl terrified me and she'd hold me accountable to what I needed to do. So, it was totally foreign to me and not something I was used to. And it was like the best thing that could have happened. So I think what's really important is to say that year that I came, it was November 2010. And I found out I was pregnant in April, the day after my husband had a traumatic accident at work and fell 16 feet out of a firehouse ceiling and broke his back.
Oh my gosh.
If it hadn't been for coaching, I probably wouldn't have stayed as focused as I did because, I was pregnant. Nobody knew. He just had his accident. I was with my new company 6 months and my business went up 114% that first year alone. And I think I closed, it was 12 or 13 million that year.
Wow.
With my husband being out of work for a year in a hospital bed in our living room, a 4 and 6 year old little boys running around. And so it was a little crazy. So that coach really, kept me on track, kept me sane, and let me think bigger so that by September that year, I had to hire a buyer's agent.
So if I were to give you a poker hand right now, and one hand says husband falls and breaks his back, another hand says you're pregnant, another hand says you've got toddlers or young kindergartners running at home, typically that is a hand that allows you to have an excuse. Mm-hmm. Yet getting into coaching, growing your business by 114%, you're still the one who did the work. So what did coaching actually do for you that without it, you might have allowed those excuses to creep into your business?
She was willing to call me on my stuff. We all give ourselves excuses and we all can give ourselves pity parties and everybody goes through stuff. I've been through 2 sick parents, my mother-in-law and my father, with year-long illnesses. And all of those things could have been an excuse. And it's really easy to curl up and say, I just don't want to do this. This is too hard. I have to work at it. But instead, what she did was she encouraged me to think differently. So, if I was going to prospect one way, she'd say, well, how about you try this? Or how about you do X, Y, and Z and look at things in a different way? Also suggesting classes that might be ideal. And at my former company, they really didn't have training. They might tell you about a product release, but they really didn't have training like we do. And It's so easy to fall in love with Keller Williams because of the training that they have. And I've taken BOLD 14 times. So, clearly I'm a strong believer in it.
So a BOLD is what I call kind of the boot camp where it comes around in different markets 2, maybe 3 times a year. For you being with Keller Williams for 8 years and taking it 14 times, you take it about twice a year. Does that sound about right?
Yep. And the first time I actually started it, I was at Prudential and I started. And then they gave me the right to come to Mega Camp with them. And I was still at Prudential because I'm a creature of habit. I married my high school sweetheart and live in the town we grew up in. So if I hadn't taken those things and gone to see the examples for myself, I could have never thought as big as Keller Williams really encouraged you to do. So I remember sitting at Mega Camp and just watching people on stage and thinking to myself, I can't wait to get back to my room and geek out and start doing all of this amazing stuff. Like I was like itching to get out of my seat so that I could go do it. I didn't want to go hang out with everybody. I wanted to just start doing stuff.
Go implement. Well, let's dive into a little bit of the fourth perspective, being learning-based and making the foundation part of your action plan. It says in the content of 6 Personal Perspectives, a learning-based individual is one who has made the decision to use effective learning as a foundation piece for their action plan to develop their life. When you do your business plan and when you create your life by design, are you planning and is learning the training, is that a foundational piece of your business plan?
It is. I'm really religious. I make binders for my entire team about doing the 411 for personal and business. I do it weekly myself. I do the growth.
Let's push pause. Break down what is the 411 and how does that help you?
It's an amazing accountability tool that we have to track your annual goals, break them down monthly, and then break them down even more individually. So I do that both personally and professionally.
Okay.
It's huge. And you can break, how do you eat an elephant? If you want to sell 300 homes, well, how are you going to break that down and how are you going to keep, accountable to that?
Yeah, one home at a time. Okay, so I didn't mean to cut you off. You said you do 4-in-1s, your entire team does 4-in-1s, everyone has binders. Tell me more of, your growth plan that you put into place, or if someone's listening to this and they've kind of winged it their entire career, whether they're in real estate or another industry that they're looking at, maybe they're investing. what sort of learning foundational pieces would you recommend someone starts to be able to start thinking the way you're thinking now, not like you were the first half of your career?
Well, I heard a quote that said sometimes you need to work harder on yourself than you do on anything else. And once you put the man together, the world falls into place.
Yep.
So taking the time to actually work harder on yourself, whether that's your mindset with gratitude and affirmations in your journal. Debbie back here and myself do that. And, it's huge. And it really, I can tell when I don't do that, that totally puts me off. And it's a trait and a habit I learned in bold. Getting time blocking down for any business owner, that is huge because there are so many distractions that come up along the way. And making sure you put in time for self-care, self-love, date nights with your spouses, because these industries, most people, that was one of the things I didn't love about my former company. I would sit there and at the time, I noticed that the makeup of the agents that I saw most in the office, a lot of them were divorcees. And that, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I know for me, that wasn't a choice that I would choose.
Sure.
And I knew that if I kept the schedule up that I was keeping, that probably would be the path that we would get to. So
I was going to say, and what I love is it really comes to the 4-in-1, your goals that you have for yourself, personally, professionally, financially, business,
Yep.
Spiritually, all our goals that all have work involved with it, right? And then that, I imagine, goes to your 4-in-1 of going, these are my annual goals.
Yep.
Therefore, to be a better mother, what do I have to do this much, such about doing it that everything else becomes easier and necessary?
Exactly.
And so I think it's important for those of you who are listening right now that if you've got a big goal and you're in business, don't just plan for that goal. Plan for every part of your life that's important for you. Now, you talked about affirmations, and you've got a pretty rigorous morning routine. Tell us about that a little bit.
So daily, I do gratitude and affirmations, and I journal. At night, I'll write down 3 wins for the day. And sometimes, when your dad is sick and dying, the wins get very hard to find. So sometimes you have to find wins or gratitude in the smallest of places to make sure that you can keep your mindset in check, because it's easy to go down the other rabbit hole. So in the morning, I do that, and then I have 1 to 3 script partners a day that I practice with. This all happens before 8 a.m. We have our team call at 8 a.m., and then, we get the day started. So
you do your gratitude, your script role play, your affirmations, all before 8 a.m.
Yes.
Script role play 1 to 3 times a day. That seems a lot for someone who's selling 200 homes a year for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
What does that do for you?
So I had partners that were throughout the country. And then one day I looked and I realized that my team members didn't have partners for script and role play all the time. And you know what? By me scripting with them or with other people, it just makes my skills that much better. And it helps me to teach them with different objections that come up. And it's interactive live real play where we practice on each other as opposed to the client. So it just makes me better. And I had somebody come up to me at one point and say, hey, in our office, I said, I can't wait to kick your butt and do X, Y, and Z. We're going to do so great. And I said, that's amazing. And I hope you do. And I said, you're practicing your scripts. And they said, yeah. I said, oh, how often? And they said, I've got a couple partners. I said, how often? They said, like twice a week. I said, that's great. And I said, if you want to beat me, at the time I had 5 script partners a day. They all were finished by 8 a.m. And that's with getting 4 kids to school.
So excuses don't really make their way into your life.
Not often. I mean, do we hear them? Yes. And is everybody perfect on our team? I'm not going to lie to people. No, we're not perfect. We don't. Right. We do our best to get our 4-in-1s done. Does everybody do it? No. Does half the team do it? At least, if not 3/4. So,
sure.
And I don't want to. I'm not the agent that's ever going to sit and say, "Oh, we do this and that," and make it like everybody does it. No, no one's perfect.
Well, and that's the pursuit of perfection, right? Not perfection.
Yeah.
You just mentioned my favorite bold law inadvertently of be, do, have. What does be, do, have mean to you, and how does it apply to your life?
Be means being the person I wish my children to know and to mimic as they grow. And do means giving and teaching along the way. And have just means having the experiences that we can in order to create the memories that we deserve with our family and our loved ones.
I love that. Well, and the reason that rang true is to be the top agent. They want to have the top business, yet if they weren't doing the 5 role plays before 8 a.m. and being the type of person who wakes up at 5 and gets all that done, the chances of them having the number 1 slot in the business was unlikely because they were counting on their entrepreneurial skills, which we learned in the E to P. All right. So if we move here, there's 2 types of learners, right? When you go to a class And we know that when you go to any class, you're sitting in there as a vacationer, a prisoner, or an explorer. So number one, you want to stay as an explorer and get ready to learn. Some people know for knowing's sake. Some people know for doing sake. What's the difference? And how do you make sure that you stay on the right side of this column of knowing for doing sake?
So the difference, I think, there's a ton of smart people and there's a lot of really smart bookshelves, right? And notebooks. If you take these classes and you don't go back and review those notes, or you don't go and implement them, then what good are they? You can just tell people, hey, I took all these classes, right? So if you're going to take bold and not call the expireds, well, why are you taking bold? Or if you're going to take bold and not do the gratitude and affirmations, that was part of it, So it depends on how you want to participate. So knowing for doing sake, I think really increases your productivity. It also increases your focus. And even no matter what class you take, my one rule is if I can learn 1 to 3 new nuggets, then the class was worth it.
I love that. So 1 to 3 new nuggets, and I'll add to that of take action within 24 hours.
Exactly.
Right. That's what we learn in bold of when we have those someday goals down to 24-hour goal, because taking action within 24 hours makes the thing in motion and more likely to happen there.
Right.
Although I've heard from a lot of assistants that when their mega agent goes to these conventions, they make them wait at least 1 to 2 weeks before they completely derail the projects they've been working on.
Yeah.
So
it gives them not to want to come back and just blow everything up and
start over. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, sorry for everyone's ears that I just yelled into. 4 levels of competency. We start off, and those of you who can't see this, it says you're unconsciously incompetent. You gain knowledge. Then you become consciously incompetent, and you now know what you don't know. To get the next level, you must gain wisdom. Once you have wisdom and you've done it, you are consciously competent, and now you know what you don't know. And then after you do that over time, it becomes a habit, and you do it without thinking. Can you think of real estate or other where you've actually can reflect on this transformation that you've gone through, whether it's starting or when you had your first buyer's agent or when you went to a certain level? Tell me where you can experience. Tell us that story.
Well, I think just a very basic one, thinking like the unconscious competence, I'd be willing to script off with anybody. So I'm that confident in my scripts, whether it's for profit share, price adjustments, whatever it may be. And that's because of the practice and the hours that I put in to do that.
So you're talking about getting to level 4 of now you can do it without thinking. If you and I were to say, hey, let's do a script off right now, you're not going to have a panic attack. You're not going to get your book. You say, game on, bring it. Yep. I've got this. The same way that you can brush your teeth without thinking about it. You can just go do it now, right?
Right.
No, I love that. So when you started scripting, how was that for you? Because now you say you're unconsciously competent with it.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to get there?
Well, so, I had the coach. I didn't always listen to her. And now I have another coach as well, just to increase my level of thinking. And for years, she would say, Jess, you're so good at your script. You're so good with your clients. It's important that you probably do some expireds and FSBOs. And I did bold, and I made my calls and all my contacts, but I didn't call the expireds. So just like I said, and that was by the 5th bold I took. So the reason I started calling the expireds was halfway through that bold, my dad got flown out to the Cleveland Clinic from Connecticut, and he had emergency heart surgery, and he ended up being there for 9 months. And I went back and forth between my kids, my team, wow, and there. And we still kept the number 1 spot. There was only 3 selling agents at the time. And the funny thing about it was I knew that my clients are my people, and they are so loving and so kind, and I'm all over social media, so they see everything. So that at that point in my life and my career, with my dad being in the hospital, it was very hard to call my clients and touch base with them, because they'd all say, hey, Jess, how you doing?
How's your dad? Yeah.
How's your dad? How you doing? And that would derail me completely. And I'm a very emotional person, so I needed to figure out what would work.
Right.
So the conscious incompetence, when I was there, what would happen was I ended up calling expireds as I sat in his hospital room. This might sound crazy, but my mom and brother would go get something to eat or leave for the evening, and I just couldn't leave my dad's side. He was my person. Mm-hmm. So he would sleep. I would get out my laptop, put my earbuds in, and just call the expired list. And I had a friend, Jill Geesey, that literally said to me one time, Jess, you can take listings by not even going to the house. And this was at Mega Camp just before he got sick. And I was like, what? That's crazy. I do 2-step listing appointments, which, by the way, I do 1 now. So I remember her saying this. and I was doing the expired call. So obviously I might have shown one of those properties, or I could have a team member go, or we could video or whatever. I ended up setting more expired listing appointments and taking more listings as I sat in that hospital room while he slept than I ever did.
Okay.
So, and it came because of need. So I knew that I had the skill there. I knew that I had all those scripts and dialogues, and I happened to take my bold binder with me when I went to the hospital, because I was like, well, I have to stay, you know, I'm a good student. I have to stay on pace with the class. So I would do that in between.
Well, and let's talk a little about, and I know you'll reference it, of Point FAR, right? Because and that's the program leads to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your actions, to your results, to reprogramming. What was your programming around expire that until you needed to do it, you chose not to? What was your programming around that?
Oh, I think like anybody, you know, cold calling isn't the greatest, and they're going to be mad. And I remember what was built into my head from the people I used to work with at my old company was, oh God, those agents who call expired, they're all bottom feeders. You know, they're feeding off other people's listings and, you know, all these negative connotations. And I remember thinking that and being like, oh my gosh, what are they going to think of me if they know I call expired? And caring. I think now that I'm 39, you know, I care a whole lot less what other people think. But when I was 23 and I started, I did. And I was still in my early 30s then. So,
yep.
So I think just being smart about your time, being willing to try something different if the typical things aren't working, and just staying consistent with it. You know, one time something might not work. 1 month something might not work. But how consistent can you be? Can you outwork somebody?
Well, it sounds like that's part of the knowledge, wisdom, and habit that you're developing there, which
right.
I love. Perfect. So continuing on as this, it says high achievers reach their goals by making training, education, self-development the foundational piece. We've all talked about that excuse me. Oops, there we go. We've got all sorts of curriculum through Keller Williams, from the launch, the growth, achievement. You've already mentioned Mega Camp and Family Reunion, which are some of the national conventions. Here's a handful of books that Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, Dave Jenks, and Linda McKissick have all written. Tell us about some of the books that you're seeing right here that have impacted your business, and how, or do you still use them? How often you go back and reference them? Talk to us about some of the educational reading that anyone can get from Barnes & Noble or Amazon that's made an impact in your life and your business.
Well, the first book I read obviously was the MREA.
Okay, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Yep. And I read that book probably once a year, and Shift at least once a year too. And I make my team read Shift as well, just because there's such amazing tactics in it even today, and just staying focused on what you need to focus on, and consistency when everybody else gives up is huge.
So Shift was written in preparation for the 2007 Shift. Yeah. Right? It talks about the 13 tactics you can go, yet we're on the brink of another shift right now. Do you think, now that we're in a technology shift, not so much an economic crisis shift, that those tactics will still be applicable?
Well, here's the thing. So in Connecticut, we've noticed an economic crisis shift.
Okay.
It might not be noticeable everywhere else, but we've seen it, and it started since last September. So I think all of those tactics will definitely be something that everybody should go back and look at, because the shift might not have hit your area yet, but it probably will. And even though it could be a technology shift, what are you going to do to change? I think what happens with people, and I remember getting into the business, I think it was, like I said, 2004, and the shift happened a few years later. I remember the agents in the office sat there going, oh gosh, the market's terrible, I don't know what to do. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? I didn't even notice it because my business kept going up.
Right.
And then I realized, because they would make fun of me, that they'd say, oh kid, what are you doing? More of that Facebook stuff? And I was like, yeah, it kind of works. And, the videos, they work. People are watching them and they're reaching out to me. And if you're not willing to change and move and learn new things, well, then that's going to make a huge impact on the future business that you could have. So be willing to try new things. But use Shift. That's the first book out of anything. And then when you want to build a team, follow the MREA. Too many people just hire a buyer's agent or don't hire an assistant. And
right.
For me, when I had that buyer's agent, I did have the assistant too. I had the part-time assistant in the middle of the summer.
Sure. No, I love that. I love that you just validated everything that Shift is. Now, you've mentioned Facebook a lot. If you're part of Keller Williams, you listen to this, and there's a Facebook group you created about 7 years ago which is the Profit Share Mastermind group, right? And
Yep.
that's your group. Before we dive into that, talk to me about and share some nuggets. If we're looking for 1 to 3 nuggets out of this podcast, that you could share someone of how you can have a positive presence with social media. What's your strategy? What is your habit around that has impacted and kept your business going strong?
People might say, oh, I don't want to share anything. And I like to keep my life private, but it makes you a secret agent, and people like to work with people they like and people they associate with. So, I'll post pictures of my kiddos. I'll post pictures of my favorite coffee and check in at my favorite coffee house, along with the book and the journal that I'm using, so that people see that I actually do this every day. I'll put it on Instagram and on Facebook. And then I have people actually ask me what my reading lists are. And they're in multiple businesses, not just real estate. And just being relatable and wanting to give back. So if you're using social media as a platform to try to help build business, one of the things I always tell people is you don't want to just, have real estate all over the place, only real estate all the time, because nobody's going to watch.
Sure.
Yet if you one time a day or every other day posted something about real estate and then had a picture of your kid or had a check-in somewhere fun or talked about a great restaurant you're at, people will find it interesting. So you need to know who your audience is and talk to them. And being the local expert and, the resource for people is enormous. So if they're looking for a contractor, you want to be the one that's out there saying, hey, I'm sitting with my favorite septic guy here at the inspection. What are some of the things we look for? Hey, how often should you pump your septic? Those are kind of things that you could just stand out with to help people and say, our friend Jason here is willing to give you a discount if you just mentioned Star Realty Group from this video that you saw, and you give everybody a break. Like, trying to be
Awesome.
that local expert is a great thing.
So do you use business page, personal page, mixture of both? How do you incorporate those?
So we post every single day multiple times on the business page, but that's
Okay.
really just like a billboard, right?
Okay.
I get the most business from my status updates and private groups. So, one of them is the Profit Share Mastermind group. That one, I don't really look to that to get a ton of business. It would be great if I did with the agent referrals.
Right.
I just started that as a resource for them. Yet, there's Simsbury Neighbors Helping Neighbors and the Friends of Squadron Line Elementary that I started, and a bunch of other Coming Soon Simsbury Properties page. So I could be the local expert in those things. So,
Right.
Using those groups to be a resource, and when somebody's asking for a realtor or they're asking for help on a contractor, connecting those people, then you get cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders will do all the work for you because you've taken great care of them.
Well, and so let's summarize that of going, be relatable, connect with the audience, and add value.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes we overthink it and Jones try to say, look at me, another one sold, or, move out of the way, buyers and sellers, and I'll tell you how great I am. And you're going, let's connect, and let's.
For some people that works. I think if I was just totally ego driven and posted that only,
Right.
or, that might work for some people. I don't think that'll work for me.
Sure.
So me taking a picture of my cute clients holding a sold sign and smooching on the front porch and, saying this one was a tough one, maybe drinking a beer behind them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be funny for people
Have
to
some
like
fun.
you.
So if we want to follow you on Instagram or Facebook, how do we find you?
Jessica Starr, Cieslak, and Star with 2 R's on Facebook. On Instagram, Star Realty Group CT. That's our Instagram. And so you can see everything we do. And what we try to do there is multiple posts a day that are informative. We try to put cute pictures up with design. We try to support local charities throughout that page, give tips on how-tos, tons of stuff in the IGTV videos.
Nice.
So, try to build a resource there. And we're just building Instagram more. And we know we have about 1,000, maybe a little bit less followers on Instagram. And the thing is, you need to talk to the audience. So you might not have 10,000 followers, and that's okay, but talk to the people who want to hear your message. So that's what I think is the most important, and know what they're looking for.
Good. I love that. We want to make sure, and if you guys need to do that, pause it, rewind it, get that number again. So you did 175-ish, about 191-ish the year before. What is next? What is your someday 5-year, 1-year goal?
So our goal ultimately will be to hit 300 units at some point. That won't be happening this year.
Okay.
We did feel a shift in Connecticut, and it's been picking up, but it was a really slow first quarter. So we're behind goal right now. We need to pick up pace. So if any of you guys know anybody in Connecticut or even lower Massachusetts, we can help them.
Is Connecticut that small that you service all of Connecticut?
Pretty close. I mean,
Okay.
there's only a couple areas we don't service.
Okay.
But I have team members that live throughout the state. So we're also not being greedy by saying, hey, we cover all of this. We put it with a team member that's closest to that area. So if they need a haircut, we can tell them where to go. If they need pet sitting, we know who to talk to. And we can connect them with the contractors.
I love it. So anywhere in Connecticut, the Starr Realty Group.
Yeah, just reach out to me and we'll place you with whoever we need to. If it's not us, we'll be sure to connect you with somebody that's going to take care of you.
What do you think is the missing link from where you're at to 300? What's the gap?
People. I know our systems are great. So usually it's people.
Yep.
People, prospecting, making sure everybody's sticking to their calendar, coming in together, working together as a team, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. Thinking back in your career, who or what has had the biggest impact that when you left it, the light bulbs were going off and you changed the course as far to 180 as you can think? What's been the greatest impact in your business?
That's a tough question.
I did not prep you for this. I'm sorry.
No, I know. Usually I'm very on the spot, but that's a tough one. There's so many classes I've taken that I can't say it's just one, but I know I keep saying bold, and yes, can sometimes it be redundant when you've taken it so many times? Sure. Yet I feel like I'm different each time and I get something new from it each time. So bold is probably one of the biggest game changers. Meeting Gary Keller, that's my daddy, and Gary. I had team members give you that.
Does your dad have a mustache too?
My dad is like an XL version of Gary Keller.
Yes, I noticed that.
Doesn't he look like it? So funny.
Yep, I love it.
So, I think those are huge. I had a goal to actually get into his mastermind, and I did in February. So that was wonderful. Great. And yet this is probably the year where our numbers are right now that I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. It should have been all those other years, but
right.
Super
and you're still in the room. Well, you do have, right? You're being there. Can
right.
you think of the biggest mistake that you made? And sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll learn. So not that you regret, yet the one that slowed you down the most, or that you wish you could have done a redo to get some time back.
Hanging on to people for too long and that weren't being accountable to their own dreams and goals. So
someone on your team, so you were accepting a lower than high standard, and therefore you held on to them. Why do you think that is? Why do people hold on to people so long?
Because we think we're doing them a favor in the end, and it's not even just a favor, but we don't want to hurt somebody, or we don't want to question. And if you don't have people that are being accountable, they'll make you feel like, hey, you're not doing the right thing by asking me these questions, or you're micromanaging. And it's like, oh, I'm actually just managing, wanted to, check in on the numbers here.
Right.
But it's really, it's not even my goal. It's what's your goal? Let's make sure you hit your goal. That's the most important. And our goal synergistically as a team. That's what the most important thing is overall. And if somebody only has that they want to do 5 or 10 deals, that's fine if that's what their standard's going to be. But we're going to have to hire around them to get more people that want to do more.
Sure.
Right? So, and if they want to do more, awesome. Let's show them a way that we can do it and find the path.
Because if you need them to do 30, they're only going to do 10. They're going to take the foot off the gas and they're going to leave you hanging. Absolutely. Okay. So as we wrap this up, what is some advice that I did not ask you that you think is important to share about your story or who you are that you'd like to leave as an impression on people?
My biggest thing is I traded success for health for years. And we slipped to number 3 last year. And I am not going to trade health again, because that is the new wealth and that is worth more than anything else. And if I can be a good example to my team, to my family, and to my community, because I learned how to take care of myself and show a little self-love. And, I'd love to have especially more women and more moms, really focus on that, because I think we're also worried about our numbers, but you need to focus on your health first. Second, your profit. So, you can see all these amazing teams up there and they look like they're doing hundreds of deals. And yet I bet if you looked at their profit and loss statement based on what they're paying and what they're doing, they're probably not that impressive. So, and that's a lot more time and headache to take care of all those other people. So be very wary about who you're going to pick as your profit. I remember Gary Keller saying this in the mastermind. He said, choose your profit wisely. You want to get role models in your life that know how to handle their finances, know how to handle their money, know how to have a good relationship with their spouse and their children, and have their children be happy. That's huge. And then, you also want to make sure that you can take care of yourself. And I am not perfect. I'm far from it. Yet I'm still a work in progress.
Right. I love that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in step 6 with the staying accountable with that. Perfect. Well, anybody who would like to follow up with you, either some moms or those who are focused on making a health transformation, or for any Connecticut referrals, say it nice and slowly for us. What's the best contact for you, both phone number and email?
So my personal cell is 860-690-0679. My email is Jessica@Starr, STARR, Realty, REALTY, group.com. And you can always find us on social media if you just Google Jessica Starr with 2 R's or Starr Realty Group. But we'd love to service and handle any of your Connecticut referrals, and we will certainly connect you with the right people if for some reason we don't actually service that area, just to make sure that your clients are getting taken care of, you're getting the referral you deserve. And we can put our whole heart into all we do to know that they're going to be in an area that they're going to be happy, healthy, and want to make memories for the rest of their life.
Fantastic. I love it. And if you missed that, it will be in the show notes below. So take a look there. And Jessica, always great getting to know you even more. I know we've had some encounters in the past. I've always enjoyed watching you and learning from you, and now, getting inspired by you. So thanks for jumping on here with us.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate you.
You bet. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, and that wraps up today's show. I told you it was a good one. She is just an amazing person with the servant leadership and the heart of gold, and I think that really shows up not only from what we just heard for the last 30 or 45 minutes, it's also in her business. Do yourself a favor and go follow her on Facebook. And again, that was Jessica Starr, or the Starr Realty Group is where you can find her on Instagram. She'll show you what she's doing out in the community. She'll show you how she's doing servant leadership and really adding value to people of all levels. Take it, learn from it, be inspired. And of course, if you have any needs in the Connecticut area, you now know exactly who to go to. That's it for today's episode. And we're going to see you next time for Removing Your Limiting Beliefs. Talking to a fantastic agent from the Franklin, Nashville area. His name is Josh Anderson. After the interview with him, I'm going, this is a guy I look up to. I'm learning from him, sending him referrals. And he's just a great one. So that'll be next episode, Removing Your Limiting Beliefs. And then we wrap it up with Being Accountable with bold coach and operating principal, Rich Carpentieri. That's it for now. Make sure you like, subscribe, or comment to this Medium thread, and we will see you next time. Thanks again.
You've just listened to the Bosley Real Estate Podcast, where we create wealth, leave legacies, and win in real estate. Follow and subscribe on social media at tagline Bosley Rick. Thank you for listening.